My name is Joe, and I am an alcoholic. And it's only by the grace of God and the help of this program of Alcoholics Anonymous I'm sober today, which I'm grateful, you know. And I've been sober since June the 2nd, 1975. And I'll tell you something like it was and something like it is today if I get to it. I don't know how long you want me up here, but I'm going to try to tell my story to the best of my ability. I started off, I was born in West Virginia, and I was born and raised and grew up on a farm there. And it wasn't an easy life. Farm life wasn't back then because it was pretty rough. And I got a hold of some alcohol. I had one brother and 4 sisters. And I was the baby boy. I had one sister younger than I was. So I was the baby boy, and I turned out the black sheep of the family, you know. But I got a hold of some moonshine back when I was about 8, 9, 10 years old, and I liked to taste the moonshine, and I never drank enough to get drunk at that time, but because my family was a Christian family, and my daddy would have really tore me up if he'd have knew anything about it, and my mama would have too. But me and my brother used to slip around and drink, get that moonshine, because we knew where the steels was back in there, because we was all the time hunting and running on the steels, and we drank some of that old sour mash every once in a while that they had, you know, but neither one of us would get drunk, you know, and we wouldn't drink enough of it because we knew that we had to keep it away from our mom and dad, the smell of it, you see. And they got on along there, and I never got in no trouble over it until I had grown up, and I went to Michigan. When I was 18 years old, I went to Michigan and went to work for Chrysler Corporation, and I remember then was about the first time that I'd ever got drunk, and I was over 18 years old, and I got drunk a lot of times then, but most of my drinking then was party drinking and weekend drinking, you know. I held a steady job then with Chrysler Corporation for 5 years, and I had only about 3 days absent out of that 5 years, so my drinking wasn't getting to me. At that time, I didn't think, you see. But looking back, it was progressive. Alcohol is a progressive disease. And I worked on there, and I got married when I was 20 years old. I'd had 2 years with Chrysler when I got married. And shortly after that, we had a son, and then my drinking still wasn't real bad, you know. I can look back, you know, I was mostly party drinking and weekend drinking, and even then, I never got in much trouble until about, I'd say it was in 1950, somewhere in 1955, well, I got busted for DWI, for my first DWI, and so I lost my license, but I had another set of license that I had confiscated somewhere. In getting my license, they sent me 2 sets of license somehow. The change of addresses was what it was, and I went down and got another one. But I still had a set of driver's license, and I went to around 56, I got laid off from Chrysler Corporation, and I went to Arkansas, and down there wasn't much work going on down there at that time, and so I got a job of truck driving, and I had a father-in-law he worked for the county. And he could get about anything that was pulled down there, you see. And so he got me a set of chauffeurs, Arkansas chauffeurs, helped get them. And so I was able to drive truck. And I drove truck driver for a while, and I couldn't make any money, and here I was. I had a wife and baby at that time, you know, and my drinking was getting pretty bad about that time too. And I remember one time I got pulled over in Ball Knob, Arkansas. I'd been in one of those honky-tonks down there, and I came out, and the laws was watching for me. I figured they was watching for the truck to pull off, you know, because as soon as it pulled off, well, they pulled me over. And luckily, my father-in-law got me out of that one. And so then it wasn't very long after that, well, I got pulled over one night coming out of Searcy, and the fog was pretty bad, and I ran a stop sign, and after I ran it, I knew what I'd done, but Highway Patrol saw me, and they got me again. And that night, they pulled me in, took me into Searcy, Arkansas, and locked me up, had my truck pulled in. The next morning, the mayor come over there, and of course, they found out who I was working for. Old Doc Rogers, he had pulled a lot of stuff there too, you know. And the mayor come over there, and he got hold of the mayor, and the mayor went over there and busted me loose. And I said, well, where's my truck, you know? And so they told me where my truck was at, sitting out there, and I went and got in my truck, hauled that back to Gregory, Arkansas, where I was living down there. And that was all it was to that. You see, I got out of that one. Yeah, I messed around down in Arkansas for about 3 or 4 months, and I decided to go to California. Me and my wife, and she had a sister out there in California, and me and my wife went out there. And well, shortly after I was there, my little boy got hit with a car and got killed, and by that time my drinking was getting pretty bad too, you know. So actually, you know, it hurt, but at that time I had the bottle to lean on, you know. And I leaned on the bottle and buried that in the bottle, you see, and that's the way I got through that. But looking back, my drinking never did get no better, you see. It was getting worse all the time. And I got some good jobs while I was drinking, even, you know. I'd sober up long enough to get my head straight at times, and one time I was working there while I was in California. I was working for Douglas Aircraft. You know, that's a good job. You know, it's a government job too, and they caught me in a damn lie on that job after I was there for about a month, and they terminated me. So, and then I went to work for Douglas Aircraft. I got a job with them, went on past my tests and all that, go in the machine shop, turned right around and got drunk and didn't make that job at all, you see. And then around 58, that's when my wife, she she sued me for the divorce, and that time my drinking was pretty bad. And I got I got busted for DWI there, got bonded out, and while I was waiting to go back to court, the night before I went back to court, well, I got busted again. I went before the judge with 2 DWIs at one time, and I couldn't hire a lawyer at that time, and so they appointed me a public defender. And I told him where I was going through a divorce and all this stuff, you know, and he went and talked to the judge, and the judge went lenient on me that time. He gave me 15 days in Lincoln Heights and didn't take my driver's license, you know, on 2 DWIs. But I promised him that when I got out, I would take care of my business and get my business back in order, you know, and all this, you see. But that never happened. So I left there, and I came back to West Virginia. I got back to West Virginia in 1960, and there wasn't no jobs hardly going on there, and so I got a job with P.F. Collier's Encyclopedias, book salesman, you know, selling them encyclopedias, and I made some good money there for a while. Of course, I could talk, you know, I could be about half drunk sometimes and have these breathalyzers, you know, to take it off my breath, I thought, you know. And I'd sell encyclopedias. And so altogether, there, you see, drinking was really bothering me at that time. And then I hadn't been in jail too many times in West Virginia. I don't think I'd ever been arrested there in West Virginia before till then. And I got busted one night coming out of Ashland, Kentucky, over into West Virginia there. As soon as I hit West Virginia, I got busted again for drunken driving. And so I said, it's about time for me to quit driving even, you know. And I got out of that one, though, by my sister going my bond and getting a lawyer for me at that time. She got me out of that leg. But see, it never did get no better. My drinking didn't. It was progressive all the time, and looking back, I didn't know it at that time. You see, didn't know none of that till I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. But I went up in Ohio, and after I got I have to back up a minute, because when I worked for P.F. Carter's Encyclopedias, I got in on a forgery charge. And so I had put out some hot checks, and so I knew they was going to get me, so I went left and went to Cleveland, Ohio first. And so they found out where I was at, and they arrested me in Cleveland, Ohio. They picked me up, Cleveland Police Department did, and held me for West Virginia. So they had me on a forgery charge, and I had to sign extradited papers. I did willingly go back, because I figured if I get back there, I could get it straightened out, you know. And at that time I had a little money too, and I thought, well, I can get me a lawyer and beat this, because the way I had been in on the forgery, the guy was writing the checks out on another person to me, and I was endorsing them and cashing them, you see. So I figured I could beat it, you know. And so when I come back, they took me for JP, and they set my bond at a $2,000 bond, and I didn't have a bond money at that time, and my people, they done cut me loose, you see. They wouldn't go my bond or nothing else, so I stayed out there in that county jail for 84 days, and finally the judge and prosecuting attorney and they appointed me a state lawyer. We all got together, and I told them that I would plead guilty to it if they would give me probation. You know, that was my first, really, my first offense of anything big in that state, you see. And I knew all these people. I knew the judge, the lawyers, and the prosecuting attorney, and all these people, because I growed up there. Well, when I went to court, but they promised me if they give me probation if I'd plead guilty. So when I went to court, see, I had never been in a big court before. Well, I didn't know what was going to happen, you see, and you know how laws are, how crooked they are, you know. You never know. And so I made the plea, not guilty, and so the judge, then I changed the lawyer told me to change I pleaded not guilty, and then the lawyer told me to change my plea. You know, he whispered, and so the lawyer got up. He said he's changed his plea to guilty, you see. And I got 2 to 10, state penitentiary in Moundsville. And he recommended me to stand my own bond to the next term of court. Well, the next term of court came up, he threw 5 years probation at me. Same judge. So I went to the probation officer. He sent me to this old man that my daddy used to go to school with, even old Walter Staley, and that was my probation officer. And I told him, I said, Walter, I can't live as probation, stay in this state. He told me I could go anywhere in the United States I wanted to, as long as I'd write him once a month. So he had me a stack of envelopes, and I took those and gave them to my sister, and I hooked them. I left that state. I went up in Cleveland, Ohio, Marysville, Ohio first, got with the High Lines up there and worked the High Lines down into Mississippi. And my drinking was still, I was still drinking and partying and all that, you see, but I wasn't getting in no trouble, you see. And I got into Mississippi, and I was staying in an old flop house called Marie Hotel there. And that's where all of us guys were staying at, was working for the High Lines. And we was out one Saturday night partying, and I got up. And coming back in at night, well, I'd stopped there at the bootlegger and got a fifth of whiskey, you see, because the next morning was Sunday morning, and I knew I'd need me a drink, and so I came in that night, and I remember setting my whiskey up on a dresser there in my room, and I just fell across the bed in my Levi jacket and Levi's and passed out, Well, I woke up that Sunday morning or Sunday sometime that day, and I looked for my whiskey and it wasn't there. So I went knocking on the doors, and the first door I knocked on was this old boy, a great old big red-headed guy. He's standing about 6 foot, and he's a big guy. And here he is, staggered to open the door, and I asked him, did he see my whiskey, and he said, no, man, I ain't seen your whiskey. And there was about 2 fingers left up in the bottle of that whiskey bottle, that fifth sitting there, And I grabbed that whiskey bottle, and I don't know, I went out, I blacked out, I don't know what I did. But I wound up in jail, and I come to in jail, and they said I'd raised all kinds of hell there in that hotel, but I don't remember none of it. That was all I remember of it. So I woke up in jail, and so the next morning, the sheriff was taking me over before the judge, and he said, you know what you did last night? And I said, no, man. He said, you damn nigh killed that guy. He says, if you don't believe me, look at the back seat of my car here. So there's blood all over, so we had to take him to the hospital last night. And I thought, well, now, hell, what are they going to charge me with when I get over in front of that judge, So the judge had me for assault, and so I pleaded guilty with a statement, and I told the judge exactly what I told you all. That was all I remembered of it. So he told me like this, he said, I'll give you a chance. You either get out of town tonight, or we're going to, you have to have 30 days in the county jail here. And I damn sure didn't want that. I told him I'd get out of town that night. So I said, if you will, I would like for somebody to go back over to the hotel, get my clothes, my suitcase, because I don't want to go over there and get in more trouble, So I knew they were all staying over there, you see, all the Highline gang. So they appointed deputies to go over there with me. I got my clothes, and I hooked them. I headed for New Orleans. I hit New Orleans. I thought I'd found heaven, but I'd get a drink anytime I wanted. But that time my drinking was pretty bad, you see. And I got to New Orleans, and I found out, that I really didn't drink as much at one time, in New Orleans that I was when I ordinarily, because I didn't have to buy a bottle. I could get a drink any time, you see, as long as I had the money or bum somebody for a drink, And that's when I run on to the winos, they was sitting on the corners, and had the Frisco circles, and I said, man, before I get that bad, I'll quit, Well, that went on, and I worked offshore a lot, and I'd come in, of course, you come in offshore with a pocket full of money, and you go back broke, and have to catch that helicopter with a hangover, and man, oh man, I catch that shell helicopter out of Morgan City. I'd be so sick I'd think I was going to die, but, never knowing that if I just leave that drink alone, I've been all right, But every time I'd hit shore, Morgan City, or don't matter where I was at or what port they sent me in to, I always found me a jug the first thing when I get off in that rig. And I'd work 14 days out and 7 men, And that got word that I was missing my helicopter, and then they'd send a crew boat and tell me where to pick it up, catch it at. I missed that son of a gun, so they finally terminated me. That's the way it went, right on. And so me and another friend of mine and a couple of gals, we decided that we were going to go to Florida, And at that time I had a little 54 Ford, and we pulled out. Now we were supposed to go to Florida, and somewhere in the hell, I don't know how we did it, but we wound up in Houston. Opposite direction every day, you see. I wound up in Houston, and all four of us did. So I wasn't here very long until I was introduced to Congress Avenue, you see. And then, you see, I'd still see them winos sitting there on the corner drinking their wine, and I'd say, Lord have mercy. Before I get that bad, I'll quit, Well, I'm going to tell y'all something. I got that bad. I got down there with them. And in and out of jail, and, and drinking that wine, working out of them labor pools, because I couldn't hold a steady job at that time. They wanted no use for me to get a job, and I knew that. See, I knew that in the back of my mind before I got a job, a steady job, that I would lose it. Well, I did. I got a steady job one time, lasted about a year for environmental equipment. I was a welder out there, and I held that job for about a year. But see, then I would, when I get off from work, and then I drank on the job a lot of times, you see. And that was one of the rules they had when they hire you. If they catch you drinking, they'll fire you automatically. Well, I was pretty smart at that time. I'd get me a coffee, and then I'd pour about half of it out, and I kept me a fifth in my toolbox. I'd drink coffee rolls, you see. And I think nobody can't smell that. Man, you can smell whiskey, especially when it's hot like that, out of coffee. You can smell that for a block, seems like. But I was a good welder, and I got by with a lot, I guess, because I worked there about a year. And even then, when I'd get off from work of evening, I'd stop down on Long Point, get me a half a pint, and get me a Coke and a glass of ice, and mix that a half pint. And I'd drink that coming into Houston. And as soon as I get to Specs, I'd go get me a quart of VO, you see. Well, the next morning, that was gone, And I had a place out there on Washington Avenue, and 610 out there, the grocery store opened up early in the morning. And I had to deal with him. I'd come in and I'd pick me up a paper sack and go back there and get me a six-pack out of the cooler and come up and pay him for it, you see. That was before the time for him to open up, you see. Before 7 o'clock. And I'd do that, and I'd go into work. Because I had to have something to get that shakes off, you see. At that time, it was getting bad. But, see, I can't get all of my stories straight because I got way back, you see, in my drinking days. You see, I married a barmaid, and that lasted about a year, and the drinking was because of that. But then it finally got bad enough that in around 64, 65, 66, something along in there, I don't remember what year, but I was in the city jail, and Van Curtis and Vi was down there at that time having their jail meetings, and so they went and asked if there was any painters in there, and I told them, yeah, I could paint, and so they sent me out to, he told me though, Van did that he'd get me busted loose on a $75 fine if I go out to Castle Court at the old Travis Group and paint that clubhouse and stay sober. Well, I promised him I would, you see. That was the first time that I didn't know anything about AA. And I went out there and I did what I'd promised Van I'd do, I stayed sober. I painted that clubhouse, but, I'd make them meetings. I had to make a meeting. Every meeting out there, I had to make that. Discussion meetings or whatever. And I thought y'all was crazy. I really did. I wasn't ready for none of this shit, But I stayed sober 34 days, and even a lot of them old timers say, was I alcoholic? And I tell them, hell no, I come out there to paint that clubhouse, But, and not realizing I was full-fledged, then. So I stayed out there about 34 days, I didn't stay there 34 days because I got me an apartment at Tommy Ross's up there, and I paid 2 weeks rent on that. And I got set up in my apartment. People in AA helped me set my apartment up, you see, got me sheets and dishes and all that. So I never got to stay in that apartment no 2 weeks, because I went downtown. I never will forget it. I walked by that old Welcome Bar down LeBranch Street, and here one of them old dirty legs sitting in there, and I go in and have me a beer, talk to her, and then as soon as Bert Willer's opened up, I go get me a fifth, and that was the end of the apartment, you see. Wound up in jail, broke again. And that's where I stayed then, out on Congress Avenue, and working out of them labor pools till 1975, and it never got no better. And 1975, June the 2nd, while I was in jail, I got busted again, of course, many times, I made the P form everywhere else, every town that I've been in. I would take that geographical cure a lot of times, I'd go to New Orleans, catch me a freight and go to New Orleans, or go to Dallas, and I rode them freight trains too, but 1975, I was in jail there in Houston again, that old Trusty compound there, Trusty, and Van and Vi was holding their jail meetings, still holding their jail meetings at that time, and at that time they've been sober about 14 years, and I said, how in the hell could anybody stay sober 14 years, and but they told me if I'd straighten up and go to 3511 Travis, that they would call ahead and when I got out of jail, I could go there and stay if I want to do something about my drinking. Well, after that meeting that night, I went upstairs and I was sitting up on that old number 17 bunk. I never will forget that in that city jail. And I was looking back, thinking what inventory I could take, of myself and all the shit I got into and all the problems that I had with the laws and wives and all that. Alcohol was involved. So I figured, well, I'm going to give it a whirl. So when I got out there, I went to 3511. I walked all the way downtown. When I walked through the doors of 3511 Travis, I had 15 cents in my pocket and the clothes I had on my back. And that was my worldly possession now. Here I was 40 years old at that time. And I'm going to tell you, that was hell to look at, my past and all the money I went through with, all the things that I'd done, and all this shit, I had to face, So I started off there. I had to make meetings there every day, every night. I had an 8 o'clock meeting I had to make every night. And I stayed there upstairs at a dormitory had a dormitory upstairs, had beds up there. And at that time, they didn't allow no AA literature, nothing but AA literature, no TV, no radio, no nothing. AA literature is all they allowed in that house at that time. And they didn't feed you nothing there. So you had to go to work or do something, you see. So I figured, well, I could go back downtown and hang circles with the winos, you know, and make my way, you see. Because I still had that old pride and old selfish pride at that time. Which today I still got pride, but I don't never want to give my pride up. But say I had selfish pride then, and you know, I didn't want nothing from AA. All I wanted from AA was to learn how to stay sober. I knew if I could learn how to stay sober, I could make it, because I did that so many times out there on that street. See, when I'd sober up, I could get a good job and get me a fine car, nice clothes, nice apartment, you know. I mean, I have one of them skirts hanging on my arm, you know, and all that, you know. I knew that, all right, if I could stay sober. Well, I started off there, and, you know, like I say, the first job I had was hanging circles with the winos, and I did that for 3 weeks, and I paid my way. You had to pay $10 a week upstairs for a bed, and so I made it hanging those circlers. And but when I get off in that paper truck, now that wine was flowing on that paper truck of a morning, you know, but I wouldn't drink, you know. And when I get off in that paper truck of Eden, I go in, get my money, and I'd head for the bus stop down on Main Street, and I'd catch the bus, go to 3511, you see. Then I found out, you know, I could go across the street over to the center, and I could eat supper over there for $1 at that time, you know. So, you know, I was a shyster too, you know. I knew how to manipulate and get around, you know. And because I was streetwise when I got here. And so I did that, well, for about 3 weeks, and then there was a job out at Aldine. He's dead now. He was telling me about a job out at Herm Clark, cutting grass out there for $3 an hour. Well, I went out there and I got the job, and I worked that for about a month or 2 months, something like that. And then I had got me a few clothes by that time, you know, and where I could dress and look like somebody, you know, and clean up a little bit. And I was working the program, trying to work the program. And the best of my ability at that time, which wasn't very good. I can look back, it wasn't very good, but then I had a chance to go to work for Brown and Rouge, and I did, and I was scared to death when I hard in with him, because I was scared I couldn't pass my physical examination, and I did. I was very fortunate. By that time I could pass my physical examination, and so I moved from 3511, I moved over to Crawford House, Steve Gandy's old place. Tommy knows where that was at, back there. And Steve was a rough son of a gun. He run a halfway house and a drying out center too, you know. And whatever he said went, you know. I mean, he was the boss of that house and that of whoever stayed there. At that time, I paid $55 a week room and board and $3 a day transportation to my job with Brown and Rouge. Well, that's where I made my financial comeback at. And in the meantime, while I was doing all of that, I had bought a car. I bought me a Cadillac from this guy, and I paid him so much down on it, and he was supposed to bring me the title of it. And I met him over at 3511, and so I went back that evening. He was supposed to meet me and bring me the title, and I was supposed to give him the rest of the money. He didn't show up. So, you know, it scared me in a way, you know. Here I got me a hot car, you know, and sure enough I did. I had me a hot car. Well, you know, I had made meetings, and I drove that car, you know, and I didn't have no driver's license then either, you know. No driver's license, no insurance, no nothing, you see. And I drove that car for I don't know how many months, and so I told this other guy that I'd met there at 3511 about this deal that I got, and he said, well, hell, says, I've got a Buick Sabre that I'll trade you straight across for that Cadillac, because I want that engine put in another Cadillac I got. And I said, okay. So we met down on one Saturday morning, and we switched out, and so he started to pull off, and I said, hey, where's my title? He said, I'll see you this evening. And I said, okay. I'll meet you here to see him give you the title. Well, I ain't never seen him no more. So I wound up with 2 hot cars before I even been sober, 6 months. Well, Christmas Day, I blew that Buick up. I blew the engine on it. And I was helping another drunk try to find his car, and out on the freeway, I floorboarded it and blew my engine. And there went that car, but I got it towed in to 3511, so I tell you how these AA members are. They'll help you with things like that too. So I had a friend of mine that had a car lot and in AA, so I told him about this Buick that I blew up. And he said, well, I can get rid of it for you, so you may not get much out of it. So I told him, fine, go ahead. And so one evening I stopped in at 3511, and a coffee bar man handed me an envelope with $35 in it. Bill got rid of my car from me, you see. So what he done with it, I don't know. I never did ask him. But now that's the way it went, But then, I'll tell you like this. I did everything wrong in AA except take a drink in my first sobriety, early sobriety. But, finally, I had to start cleaning my act up, He told me to stay out of relationships. Now, I had a bunch of old timers at that time, and I had one woman that kind of winged me. She had 20 years sobriety when I first got in, and she kind of winged me and took me to different meetings and told me how the people worked in AA, and and what to watch out for and all this, And she was a pretty good old gal, and I run with her a long time, and about 6 months, I guess it was. Well, I finally, I started working the program. Of course, now I had a lot of old timers helping me too, and they told me to stay out of relationships. Well, shit, I didn't do that, I never stopped having relationships. I never stopped dating and all that. And after I got my own apartment, I had live-ins and all that, But I didn't get drunk, see. But I had some buddies of mine, as soon as they tie up one of them gals, they go get drunk, But I didn't. I was very fortunate, I guess. But I wouldn't advise anybody else to do that, because you go through a whole lot of shit, But I finally started working the program and taking myself serious about alcoholism, and I wanted to learn everything I could about it, because I didn't want to get drunk, see. Even though I had went against the grain of AA a lot of times, dealing and messing with stuff that I wasn't supposed to, that, like relationships and hot cars and not being honest with people and stuff like that. But the first thing I had to do when I got here, I did get honest with my alcohol. I knew I couldn't drink no more, you see. And I knew that. And so when I started working the program and getting into the steps, and I went to a lot of step studies, and I went to a lot of big book studies, and I made meetings all over Texas, and everything that I could learn about AA and about drinking, how to stay sober, I was trying to learn it, the best of my ability, you see. And I was staying sober. Well, I was sober, that time I was sober about 2 years and 8 days when I married another little old gal, and that lasted 7 months. And she wanted a divorce, And I can't much blame her, at that time, because I was still kind of a miserable son of a gun, I guess, to live with. And that lasted 7 months. She wanted a divorce, and I told her, fine. So she signed a waiver, I went and got a divorce, That was all it was to that one. Well, I messed around into 1980, I got married again. And that marriage lasted almost pretty close to 10 years, about 9 years, I guess it was something like that, when I got a divorce from her. But that divorce cost me about $18,000, you see. But this is the way what happens, you see. But you see, the thing it was, I didn't have to drink about it. I've lost family members. Went through divorces and didn't have to drink about it. And then I turned around in '93, I went married again. And that time, I married another alcoholic. They say sober alcoholic. Well, needless to say, that didn't last very long either. 2.5 years, see. And looking back, because a person's in this program and sober, they're not easy to live with, And I found that out too. And but you live and learn. And by working this program the best of my ability, I'll put it like this: all these 12 promises, I don't know where they are here, but those 12 promises is true. They've come true to me. Today, now I went through this last divorce. It was about the nastiest divorce I ever went through yet. And I hope there ain't no more yet. But I'm kind of gun shy now. After 5, But I've had some good times, through it all, but still yet. But after working all this program, and like it's supposed to be work, taking the steps, but I finally had to get rigorously honesty, what they call that rigorous honesty. Well, it finally had to happen, It does have to happen before you can work on yourself, before you take these steps and the best of your ability, you have to get honest. Well, I did. I cleaned my act up, and I'm clean. In 93, I went to the church. Now I'm an usher in the church, you see. And that's a change I made, I come to AA to get my ass saved, come to church to get my soul saved, you see. But you see, that don't make me no better or no different than you all. It makes me feel a lot better that I know where I'm going, when I leave here, But other than that, well, I participate in my church, and I enjoyed it. And, I've heard a lot of people say, don't mix AA with your church, Well, some people don't, that's them, up to them. But all the steps is in the Bible, you see, every one of them. I found that out too, okay. But still yet, you see, this is a spiritual program. And just like I say, all these promises come true in my life. Today, I own my own home, own some more property up in Walner. I'm buying another house. My Cadillac, I got another Cadillac, a real one, paid for. I got a pickup truck paid for, and I got a Doberman picture, and her and I get along fine, But, all these things that happens in your life after you get sober, you can look at them and you can work through them. You see, you can work through them. You can turn it over to God and sit down there and you can starve to death too, you see. So I had to learn. When I got sober, I had to get off my butt and do something about myself. I had to do the footwork, and I have, you know. And I've worked with a lot of alcoholics since I've been sober. That's another thing, you see, that I've done. I ran the court group downtown there for over 5 years, 2 meetings a week down there. I took the AA right back where I come from, you know. I did that. I went to the P Forum a lot and shared with the guys that was in behind bars, you know. And I worked with a lot of alcoholics, and I've never refused to do anything that AA has asked me to do, you know. And today I'm happy, most of the time. Now, I'd say most of the time. It's not easy for alcoholics to not be working and doing something. I think that's the best that is the best therapy I found in this program, was getting off my butt and going to work, you know. And lately, back in 97, I had some problem with my heart. It put me in intensive care for 3 days, you see. And they got my heart regulated, and I'm taking a heart medicine now once a day and a fluid pill once a day. But I'm not able to do the kind of work that I like to do. I mean, get out there and get it like I used to, because my health won't let me, you see. But still yet, you see, I can make it on what I draw now. I have an income, and I can make it on that. And you see, I can make more meetings, and I still make a lot of meetings, because this is where I learned how to live at, right here in these rooms, you know. You people taught me how to live sober one day at a time. And that's the way it's been, you see. But I remember old timers, you know, around the 24-hour club, you know, and around this group here. We used to have a lot of old timers coming to this group, you know. There was like I really can't put it in words what AA has done for me, you see, because it's awesome what AA has done for me. And I want to shut up because I think I run the course, and thank you all for listening.